Big Blue Blitz with your host, Joe Mauceri.
Are you happy now, Giants fans? You got your pound of flesh. Brian Daboll out as head coach of the New York Giants after yet another embarrassing loss. This time in Chicago, another double-digit lead squandered by these New York Giants, the third time this season. And so Brian Daboll, in his fourth season as head coach of the New York Giants, with a 20-40-1 record, has been fired. I get it. Somebody had to go. Something wasn't working. But Brian Daboll was not the guy. I'm on an island here. I realize that. But I'm going to throw out some numbers here for you. I'm going to throw out some players' names here for you. And I'm going to tell you why, if the Giants don't get rid of Joe Schoen now, after firing Brian Daboll, this will be a fiasco for the franchise. So first things first, let's sort it all out. Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator of the Giants, will take over as the interim head coach. I can't see any way that he is the head coach of this organization going into next year. So if you count Kafka, whoever takes over for him will be the seventh coach for the New York Giants since 2016. And I know that Brian Daboll has not won enough here in New York, although he did win a playoff game, beating the Minnesota Vikings. But when you look at the talent on this roster, or lack thereof, when you look at the personnel decisions that this franchise has made since Joe Schoen took over as the general manager, you cannot blame Brian Daboll for the failures of this franchise. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, but they had leads against teams this year, and that's coaching when you let that lead slip away. Yes, but coaching is also getting that lead against one of the toughest schedules of any NFL team this season. We didn't expect the Giants to win coming into this season. You had no idea what was going to happen at quarterback. You went out and you got an old Russell Wilson, who is now cooked. You went out and got Jameis Winston, who, while he's entertaining off the field and seems to be a great locker room guy, has not yet stepped on the field for these New York Football Giants in the regular season. And then you went out and you got a rookie quarterback who Brian Daboll lobbied for in Jaxson Dart, who, because Brian Daboll loved Jaxson Dart so much, he convinced Joe Schoen to trade up to get Jaxson Dart in the first round, which means that this franchise will have one more year of control with that fifth-year option over the player they believe to be their franchise quarterback moving forward. That is the most important thing and really the only thing you need to know about why the Giants should have kept Brian Daboll beyond this season. The relationship between coach and quarterback is the most important relationship in all of sports. And the Giants have that. Well, they had that before they let Brian Daboll go today. Joe Schoen tried to distance himself from the Jaxson Dart pick. You heard him say to Brian Daboll, well, this is your guy. And if you want to draft him, I will listen to you. Well, you know what? You probably should have listened to him a little bit more. You look at the names that the Giants have let go since Joe Schoen became the general manager of this franchise. Guys like Xavier McKinney, Jordan Love, Saquon Barkley, Leonard Williams. All guys who are still contributing at a very high level with their current teams in the NFL. You look at some of the names that Joe Schoen brought in. Russell Wilson, Darren Waller, Javon Holland. You look at the deal that he gave Darius Slayton. A deal which, mind you, would have kept Saquon Barkley here in New York. Your best weapon. Your most talented offensive player. And so for today, Brian Daboll to get the axe when his team is still out there fighting, when we talk about the fact that they have very little talent at skill positions on this team, the fact that Russell Wilson had to come into this game and takes 2 sacks on a key drive before your punter shanks the ball 27 yards that sets up the game-winning touchdown for the opposition? Brian Daboll is not responsible for that. Joe Schoen is responsible for the Russell Wilson part of that. The punter is responsible for the shanked punt. But Brian Daboll is the one who ends up getting the axe today. He hadn't lost this locker room. Listen to what Brian Burns, arguably the leader on this defense, had to say after the game when he was asked about his belief in the coaches here for the New York Giants.
As long as he in this building, I'm believing him. As long as any of them are my coaches, I'm going to believe in them, and that's just where I stand. You feel me? I don't switch up. I mean, we in every game. It just comes down to us finishing, and I put that on all of us. Put that on our star players, our role players. I put it on myself. You know, there's plays I got to finish. I got to finish certain sacks. I got to get the ball out. I got to make an impact play, you know, to solidify that win. So I put it on all of us, bro. It's not just one person, and it's damn sure not just the coaches. So it's all of us.
He could have thrown his coach under the bus. He didn't. Brian Daboll has the respect of the guys in this locker room. So Brian Daboll out as Giants head coach. I am a man on an island, and coming up after the break, Ryan Dunleavy, NFL reporter for the New York Post, is going to tell me why I am completely wrong about my take. Stay with us. Big Blue Blitz coming right back.
Welcome back to Big Blue Blitz.
Brian Daboll out as head coach of the New York Giants. I told you I think that is the wrong decision for the franchise. Fortunately, we have somebody who joins us each and every week to tell us why I am wrong in my evaluation of the Giants' decision. But I think we're going to have some common ground on this one. Fresh off the plane from Chicago, NFL reporter for the New York Post, Ryan Dunleavy. Ryan, only a half-hour delayed flight. Not too bad, huh?
No, I almost jumped off the plane at one point, Joe. I got a text while I was on the plane. I got a text that Daboll was out before anybody else had it, and I went to tweet it from the plane, and the United Wi-Fi in the turbulence was not working, and I could not.
Oh my goodness!
I could not get what would have been the biggest news scoop of my career. And again, Brian Daboll lost his job. That's first and foremost. You're a good person, lost his job. But in the world we live in where scoops are money, I had it and United let me down. I'm switching to Delta.
There you go. Wow. I'm going to invest in Delta stock right now. You heard it. Calls and puts. The stock market will be shifting because of what Ryan Dunleavy said today. You move markets here. All right, Ryan. I'm a crazy man. I am Gilligan. You called me before we started this here, out on an island by myself. I think this was a terrible decision by the Giants to get rid of Brian Daboll. I think this speaks to a franchise that is in a state of disarray and dysfunction and has been for the last decade, and this is going to perpetuate that moving forward. Why am I wrong?
Well, you're not wrong about the second half of that. Like
okay.
they are in perennial dysfunction and disarray. There's absolutely no reason to believe that they're going to get the next coaching hire right because they haven't got the coach or GM hire right in years. The only thing they've gotten right really is it looks like is the quarterback, and that was mostly the guy that they fired. But here's the thing. Brian Daboll wasn't the offensive coordinator. I felt this way when the Giants fired Pat Shurmur in 2020. Like if he was Daniel Jones's offensive coordinator, he should have stayed, but he's not. He's the head coach. And so that involves clock management. That involves fixing problems. That involves managing players. That involves accountability in your roster. And that's where he came up short in all the areas besides identifying the quarterback. You're not coaching one of 53 players. You're coaching all 53 players. And he's, 11-33 since the start of the 2023 season. That alone, if you take out the first season, is a 250 winning percentage. That would be the 5th worst in NFL history.
All right, before I get to the factors that led to that, let me ask you this. Start with yesterday's game, right? You look at that game and that loss. Is there a decision in that game that you question from Brian Daboll that you're like, I wouldn't have done the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close. I said it first, guessed it the going for the field goal from the half-yard line. You're a 2-7 team. You're up 17-10. You blow games left and right. You have a chance to, I don't know, they might have still blown the game. Honestly, they probably still would have lost in overtime. But you have a chance to dig the knife in a little deeper, so to speak, and go up 14 instead of 10 with 10 minutes to go on 4th and 1 from the 4th and goal from the 1-yard line. Daboll, throughout his 4 years, almost always goes for it inside the 5-yard line. That's his pattern. He's super aggressive. He went for a 4th and 1 earlier in the game on the 19-yard line. They threw a feed to Bellinger in one-on-one coverage. He does not really settle for chip shot field goals like that. And there in that moment is when he decided to kick the field goal. They went up 10. At that point, I said they're going to lose this game 24-20. That's exactly what happened. I would absolutely. Now, look, I get it. He probably does go for it if Jaxson Dart's in the game not Russell Wilson.
Good. Okay.
He probably does go for it there. But then Russell Wilson can't be your backup quarterback. If you have no faith in him, then he can't be your backup. Then Jameis Winston has to be your backup quarterback. Or you have to have a tush-push play where Theo Johnson knows how to take a snap. You practice endless amounts of hours all season long. It can't be Jaxson Dart's not in. The whole game plan goes to crap.
But here's the thing. Okay, I'm with you. So a lot to unpack there, because my first thing was going to be if Jaxson Dart's in the game, they're definitely going for that right there. So that's number one. Number two, Russell Wilson being the backup quarterback. You have said that this was a franchise that made a promise to Russell Wilson. That is the reason he was the opening day starter. That is the reason he is not the emergency quarterback. He is the backup quarterback. This isn't Brian Daboll's call. This goes back to what I was saying in the first half of the show, that Joe Schoen has ruined this roster and has had Brian Daboll fighting with his hands behind his back throughout the majority of his tenure here. It's not his call that Russell Wilson was the backup quarterback in this game.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think I disagree. I don't think I agree with that at all, actually. It's might not be his call that they signed Russell Wilson. It was certainly his call that they named Russell Wilson the starter in March without any kind of competition. It was certainly his call to give Russell Wilson every single first-team snap all training camp without any kind of even rest day for somebody else. It was certainly his call to bench Russell Wilson in week 4. So, I don't know if I agree with that. If he wanted to bench him and make him the third-string quarterback, certainly after that display in week 6 where Dart went in the concussion tent, and we saw Daboll was willing to take $100,000 fine rather than run a play with Russell Wilson. Right. Certainly at that point, he could have made the change. I mean, he's fighting for his career. He was. He went against the organization basically and put Dart in before the rest of them thought he was ready. He certainly could have went in against the organization and said, no, Jameis is QB2 on game day. And I don't think Jameis is any better than Russell Wilson. Right. I really don't. But in that situation, maybe you would have run a play on 4th and 1 because he's a bigger body. So maybe you could have run a quarterback sneak with Jameis.
All right, but here's the thing. In that situation, forget about who the quarterback is. You're going from a 1-score game to a 2-score game. You've given up 10 points in 3.5 quarters. Your defense is playing well. It's not his fault that Russell Wilson takes 2 sacks on third down, on that final possession before they punt, and then their punter shanks one 27 yards, which sets up the game-winning touchdown. That's not on him in that situation. It's not his fault that the defense falls apart and that Corey Black can't make a stop, and that they're depending on Deonte Banks in that situation.
I mean, it kind of is. I mean, he's the head coach. He kind of is. He hired the defensive coordinator. He didn't fire the defensive coordinator. He signed off on the draft picks. It kind of is his fault, right? He's the one who has Russell Wilson in the game. Right. He signs off on Mike Kafka's play calls, which obviously led to Russell Wilson taking sacks. Don't have Russell Wilson take a 5-step drop if you think it's going to lead to a sack. Roll him out and throw a 1-yard.
Well, they did. That's about all they did for him. If it wasn't for Devin Singletary breaking a tackle behind the line of scrimmage, I think he has 0 net passing yards.
And I just think there's too much of this in sports, specifically in the NFL. Not every game is an isolated situation. Coaches always try to pretend like every game is an independent game or whatever. Yeah. It's not. Your team blows leads. That's what you do. You find ways to lose. So you can't tell me like every media person in the press box knew this was going to happen again. Every fan knew it was going to happen again. The players say they didn't know it was again. Look at the sideline. You could see they're nervous. It's going to happen again. Like, you can't tell me it wasn't in Daboll's head. Like, oh no, is this going to happen again? So you have to guard it. You can't be like, our defense is playing great for 3 quarters, because it's your defense played great for 3 quarters 3 weeks ago in Denver. What you have to be thinking is, our defense melts down. What can I do to stop that?
Okay. So before he took over, before Joe Schoen took over, John Mara talked about how this franchise was ruining Daniel Jones, right? How they did nothing to support him.
Yeah.
Mike Kafka is not going to be the head coach of this franchise next year, which means Jaxson Dart is going to be starting over with a new head coach and a new quarterback, offensive coordinator. And we have seen with other quarterbacks have a good year, and then their offensive coordinator leaves or their head coach leaves, and then they're starting over from square one. We're doing that again with Jaxson Dart. Aren't they just going to ruin Jaxson Dart the same way they ruined Daniel Jones? And when you look at the roster, if you're giving Brian Daboll credit for signing off on this, right, on the picks, which I think is even a bridge too far in some ways here, because I think Joe Schoen went out and got some of the guys that he wanted. And we'll talk about Joe Schoen in 1 second here. But when you look at what he has done, I mean, you're starting from square one.
On offense, you're starting from square one for sure. Look. So wait, what was your question, Joe?
So my question is here: aren't we ruining Jaxson Dart the same way we ruined Daniel Jones?
If you hire the wrong people, you're ruining Jaxson Dart. You're going to be right in the same situation where, like, you're like, oh, we ruined this guy. He's got to learn a new playbook, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll say this. If you hire the right guy, that doesn't have to be the case. Like, Caleb Williams certainly looks as good or better than he did as a rookie with Ben Johnson as the head coach.
Yeah, Caleb Williams also has how many? 3 or 4 first-round picks on that offense to help him out?
I mean,
the Giants have one we're talking about, and Malik Neighbors, who's not even on the field right now?
Correct. Right. So, that's because the Giants have missed on too many first-round picks. One of the reasons they're bad is because Evan Neal's bad, and Jalen Hyatt's bad, and Deonte Banks is bad, and John Michael Schmitz is bad, and Tyler Nubin's bad. So, like, I mean, that's the problem. But to your point, like, if they hire the right guy, they don't have to set Jaxson Dart back. I'll just tell you, I got a text from somebody when this happened, and I was like, does this ruin Brian Daboll? Does this ruin Jaxson Dart? And they said, Jaxson Dart's best stuff so far comes outside of the practice script. It's outside of the game script. It's the off-script stuff. It's the when the play breaks down, he makes things happen. The scheme hasn't been giving Jaxson Dart his best advantages so far. So if you believe that person, then the changing coach isn't going to really do anything, because the next coach isn't going to say, hey, Jaxson, don't run around and make things happen. So that part of his game will still be there, and maybe the next offensive scheme will actually set him up where he doesn't have to do all those things.
Okay.
I don't see an area where he takes a step backwards.
I know that you have already released your article for the Post about who the next coach should be, or at least some potential candidates there. You want to give a little tease? People can obviously read the full article if they go to NewYorkPost.com, but what do you think is the right move for the Giants here? Obviously, a lot has to play out first.
Yeah, a lot has to play out. The number one thing I think the Giants should be thinking is experience, right? Like, that's I think they should be targeting experience. We got to see who shakes free. Maybe Kevin Stefanski shakes free from the Browns, a 2-time coach of the year. Maybe Zach Taylor shakes free from the Bengals, been to a Super Bowl. I don't blame them if they want experience. I do wonder if keeping Joe Schoen will turn away some experienced candidates, because he could be a deterrent, right? I mean, like we said, he hasn't built a great roster. He didn't look great on Hard Knocks. If you don't know Joe Schoen, you probably don't have a great opinion of him as a talent evaluator. So I think those are some names. Mike Tomlin, obviously the Giants and Steelers are tied organizations. If he decides his run is over in Pittsburgh, he'll have suitors out the door. Would he just come to the Giants maybe because he knows the values are similar among the family-run organizations? Guess that's possible. If I'm going the assistant route, I want Jeff Hafley. Case closed, done. Packers defensive coordinator. If I'm looking for a first-time NFL head coach, that's my guy. He is a North Jersey native. He's built for the market. He has run a program, albeit at college, 4 years at Boston College. And we know, obviously, the Maras and the organization, the Giants of BC, have very deep ties to each other.
All right. I'm going to throw out a couple other names just to see what you think. College coach here, Lane Kiffin, any shot?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's tied to Jaxson Dart is going to have a shot in this. So Lane Kiffin is Ole Miss coach, though SEC money might be better than NFL money, honestly. So Florida or Ole Miss could outbid the Giants easily for Lane Kiffin. Just if he wants to scratch an itch of the NFL, get back. He failed as a 32, 33-year-old. Does he want to get back now that he's much wiser and show he can do it here? And John Gruden would be in that same boat. Obviously, he's tied to Dart through the Gruden quarterback school.
One more name I'll throw out there. I think a little bit of a dark horse, but a local guy nonetheless. What about a Lou Anarumo?
I will say that Lou Anarumo has a lot of fans in the Giants organization, and had Shane Bowen not been the defensive coordinator this year, and had the Colts not had a job opening for defensive coordinator, I wouldn't have bet against Lou Anarumo being on Brian Daboll's staff. So I think there is certainly a possibility of Lou Anarumo.
All right, last thing here, and we got to wrap up, unfortunately, because we could talk about this all day. Joe Schoen not talking to the media. Nobody talking to the media for the Giants today.
You can't put a time cap on me on Joe Schoen, Joe.
All right, go. I'll let you take it away. You trust him? You trust him to make the decision?
No. How could anybody? No. How could it? I mean, he's let Saquon Barkley go. He's let Xavier McKinney go. He's let talent walk out the door. He hasn't done a good job picking talent. He's 20-40 as the GM. He hired Brian Daboll. I don't understand what he has done necessarily to get to stay and make the second choice. The feeling in the building, as you can see from John Mara's prepared statement, is that they have better talent than the record shows. So I guess if you want to blame it all on coaching, then I guess you could do that. I think that might be overvaluing their talent in the building a little bit. Certainly their depth, maybe not their starters. But I also get when you fire a GM, Joe, you fire all the scouts, you fire all the personnel guys. That's a big undertaking right now for an organization that, its owner is fighting his own battles. So I certainly get the value of continuity and of having someone you trust lead the organization right now. I just don't know what he's done to earn that.
I am with you in the same boat. I think if you gave these guys the grace last year, you had to give them at least one more year with the quarterback. Obviously, John Mara going through a lot right now, so maybe he's pressing a little bit here to try and see some results, and I don't think there are shortcuts in the NFL. But the Giants will be on their 7th coach since 2016 to start next year, assuming Mike Kafka is not the head coach of the New York Giants. They got their pound of flesh, Ryan. We'll see if it was the right decision moving forward. Appreciate you, as always. For Ryan Dunleavy, I'm Joe Mauceri. Giants fans, we're going to have a lot to talk about from here on out. Let the wild rumpus begin. We'll talk to you next week.